everybody. My name is Lawana Gelzer.
My name is Mike Cantone. We are former City of Orlando municipal candidates in the 2012 elections. It pains us to have to be here today to make this announcement, but after a year-long, extensive public investigation into the 2012 municipal election and handling of ballots by the city clerk's office, we are here to deliver an 8-page official criminal complaint to Jeff Ashton, calling on the state attorney's office to launch a full investigation. We will also be delivering copies of this complaint and our supporting materials, over 1,000 documents collected over the past year, to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, to Governor Rick Scott's office, and to the office of Attorney General Pam Bondi. Real quick, I would like to summarize what is included in the 8-page complaint and what some of our materials are, and then we will open it up for questions. This started almost 1 year ago when we warned on February 29th, 2012, that thousands of absentee ballot requests flooding into the city of Orlando and the supervisor of elections were being harvested by paid staffers. Our investigation has since found that there are many similarities between 2012 and the 2005 grand jury case against Mayor Dyer, Ezzie Thomas, and several other paid staffers in that election. Only this year we found much more troubling information and patterns of possible public corruption in the city clerk's office. One of our main problems stems from the contract signed between the supervisor of elections office and the city clerk's office of Orlando. In this contract, it was made clear that the city of Orlando would administer the election, despite the public appearance that the supervisor of elections office was in charge. Specifically in this contract, that differs from every other major Florida city, is a provision that the city of Orlando would be responsible for handling, counting, sorting, and tabulating absentee ballots on election day. This means that City Clerk Alana Brenner hand-selected city-paid staffers, which then opened and sorted all ballots beginning at 9 a.m. before the polls closed. Some of these city employees were making as much as $40 an hour, and they come from several different departments within the city, including economic development and the city attorney's office. We've also found numerous instances of the city clerk's office rejecting public records requests, stonewalling our investigation, and also providing false information, correcting information, and conflicting information. We have included copies of all the questionable absentee ballot requests, as well as over 1,000 absentee ballots that included very troubling and serious misrepresentations of the voter's intent. This includes different handwriting on the same absentee ballots, different color ink, falsified dates, and failure to break the seal with the signature.
And that's a spreadsheet, that's an Excel spreadsheet where we went through and looked at 860 plus absentee ballots in District 501 through 6501. And we came up with a 25-page document where we saw irregularities. In addition, on election day at 8 o'clock, myself, Ken Mulvaney, and Brian Mulvaney was there to observe the presentation as far as absentee ballots. We identified 371 absentee ballots that we had problems with. That plus this 860 is what we're talking about, the 1,000. So they pulled them out. We have those names, we have that information, and they agreed with us. All of those were blatant incidents where the signatures were to the side, up underneath, the ink was different, someone else was dating them, you name it. It was a constant variable that I was witness to in 2004 election when I participated. So I was able to look at that information and literally put this one, this one, this one, and I made the statement. I would think they would have changed their pattern by now, but it's so easy to identify what is going on, and we really want that to change. So we do have this spreadsheet. We will have to email it to you.
And prior to our investigation being concluded, the city clerk's office moved in very rapidly to seize all ballots, which are now being held in the city vault. and we are being denied access, full access to these ballots. Instead, they'd like to bring us one box at a time and not tell us where all the ballots are. We also have information from the clerk's office stating that more than 102% of the registered voters in the city of Orlando were ordered ballots, meaning the city ordered more ballots for the 2012 municipal election than there are voters in the city of Orlando. We are not able to access the blank, unused, and unsealed ballots in this election. We have been stonewalled, and that is one of our requests to State Attorney Jeff Ashton to open a full investigation.
Also, as far as the absentee ballot requests, they will be destroyed within a year. So as of April 4th, these that we have copied that have been redacted, meaning the signatures are blacking out, we need to him to act on that, because at this particular time, that is going to be destroyed. They only keep it on record for 1 year.
And we are on a deadline for that action. So we will urge the state attorney to move quickly, as well as FDLE. Also, another grave concern in this election is the City of Orlando's canvassing board, which is far different than the county's canvassing board. City Clerk Alana Brenner is in charge of the canvassing board. Daisy Lynham and Commissioner Robert Stewart also sat on this board. Daisy Lynham, which is detailed in our complaint, made several motions to allow the opening of ballots prior to polls closing. She also violated her duties on the canvassing board and was forced to resign from the canvassing board the day before the election. Commissioner Stewart then resubmitted her proposals, but our problem is that only Commissioner Stewart and only City Clerk Alana Brenner, a political appointee of the mayor, were in on the decision of how to handle, count, and tabulate all absentee ballots.
And I want to add, because I was present that day to review the absentee ballots, while we were there at 8 o'clock, literally while we were looking at the ballots, they were beginning to open the ballot. We only had 1 hour to look at the ballots and determine what we could do. Not enough time for thousands of ballots. But that's the only time we was allowed it to do it, to review them. 1 hour.
And I would point out that we were not done challenging. Numerous candidates were not done challenging ballots before the time expires.
That's correct.
And that is why we have found over 850 more questionable ballots that were accepted, counted, and tabulated in this election's results.
And I just want to add, because I was a plaintiff on the case in 2004, I just want to let everyone know that because of that, we were able to look at additional information. We looked at things that we didn't have the information about or didn't know they were doing. And because the players literally had switched sides, because Sam Eames, Sandra Lewis participated on the lawsuit side with the plaintiffs, myself, and Ken Mulvaney. Now they're actually the ones that hired Ezzie Thomas and are doing exactly what we were trying to discover and stop in 2004. And I also want to add, for those who are not sure, if you need to know that someone had all the documents of that case sealed. So you cannot go into the courthouse and receive that information. But because I'm a plaintiff and because I have an accounting background, I keep everything. So I have all of that at my disposal, from the beginning to the end.
And those pretrial diversions that dropped the charges against Mayor Dyer, we have included that in our documents, because in that document, he swore to never participate in these activities again in future elections. Now, Ezzie Thomas was a paid operative in this election for Commissioner Ings. However, we have conclusive proof based on our investigation that Ezzie Thomas, Sandra Lewis, and several other paid operatives collected ballots not just in District 6, but also in District 5, where only the mayor's race was on the ballot. This ballot harvesting in Orlando must stop, and that is one of our top objectives in this investigation. We need to stop the pay for votes that is going on year after year in local elections.
And to add, as far as the canvassing board, we would like the canvassing board to be reflective of the Orange County Canvassing Board. Daisy was a part of the canvassing board in 2004, and she's a part of the canvassing board again. You would think by now she would know how to be a person of that would be upright, but she's not. And she's also, you can look at her records and see that she's been paying ESI for years. So all we're saying is let's look at the canvassing board and make those changes.
So before we take questions, today I'm calling on City Council to make 2 immediate changes so that these actions never happen again. As Lawana Gelzer just stated, 1 is to expand the canvassing board. I'm calling on the city to at least add the supervisor of elections from the county, who is an elected official, to be part of that canvassing board moving forward. And I call on the city to also add a retired judge to be appointed by the mayor and approved by the council, as well as 2 lay citizens, 1 male and 1 female, who have no financial business with the city. This will ensure proper accountability and transparency to the voters of Orlando. Secondly, I am calling on a revision to the city code to match the language in the Tampa City Charter, which clearly states the county supervisor of elections is the administrator of the elections and will run all aspects of those elections. Alana Brenner is a political appointee of an elected politician. She should not be in charge of tabulating, handling, and counting the votes. If the city cannot make this provision, we are calling on the city of Orlando to make the city clerk's office an elected position so that the clerk will be accountable to the voters, not to a politician. Now with that, we will accept any questions before we make our delivery to the state attorney.
Are you saying that you believe Alana Brenner and or others in the city clerk's office not just mishandled votes, but threw votes out, changed votes?
We are unable to come to any conclusive results on that. However, we have a letter from the attorney of the supervisor of elections, which states that no supervisor of election staff were in the room when the ballots were being opened, counted, sorted, and tabulated. We only had paid employees from City Hall in that process. They did not receive proper supervision nor proper training from supervisor staff. So the chain of command of these ballots is in question, and I believe that that taints the election and challenges the integrity of the votes.
Mike, what took so long? The election was last April. Why this length of time before filing this formal complaint, number 1? And number 2, talk a little bit more about the contract and the role of the supervisor of election and why he appears, or the office appears to have fallen down in terms of proper oversight of the election.
Real quick, and restate your first question, then I'll answer the second.
Yeah, what took so long? Length of time.
Our first complaint, February 29th, going into the election, we did bring these concerns to the state attorney at the time. His office refused to accept our complaint and refused to call for an investigation. We then quickly we all moved into a very robust 2012 general election, and we knew we would need to wait for a new state attorney. Now that Jeff Ashton has been in office, has solidified his senior team, we believe now is the right time where him and his staff can take an honest look at these evidence and make a decision. However, we did attempt to do this a year ago. So this is simply follow through from being stonewalled by that office as well.
And the contract between the city and the supervisor of elections and why it appears.
One other provision in that contract that is a little suspicious is that the supervisor also made clear that if there were any challenges or legal questions regarding the municipal election to the supervisor's office, the city of Orlando would be responsible for all legal fees. So we do see concerns throughout that contract that the supervisor of elections was distancing himself from the Orlando election, and the city of Orlando clearly wanted control of their own election. Had the mayor not moved this municipal election to April 3rd, Bill Cowles would have administered the election had it fallen on the presidential primary date, as was originally scheduled. Unfortunately, I am a little disappointed that the supervisor of elections is choosing to look the other way or simply go by what is in his contract, because I would have liked him to call out what he saw happening in his own office.
If the absentee ballots were handled according to the way you want them or think they should be, do you think the election outcome would have been different?
That's really not the purpose of why we're here. We cannot answer that question because we don't know what happened in that room. We don't know why ballots were opened prior to the polls closing. We also do know that once city staff was in the room, there were media leaked reports on the extensive absentee turnout. And prior to polls closing, after 5 p.m., before the afternoon rush of after work, there were several media reports, including on Bright House Channel 13, that the mayor and all incumbents were cruising to victory, and we believe that this was a voter suppression tactic, and the only people that could have known that were the people in the room with the ballots. I do think it is also very suspicious that, again, city-paid employees would open and pile up ballots before being actually counted or sorted or protected. And no one can answer a definitive question of who was in the room. No one can answer who left the room, who entered the room throughout the day. We know that they began opening ballots at 9 a.m. That's an all-day encounter to protect those ballots, and the integrity of each ballot in that room is now tainted.
Matt House, it's not the outcome, it's the things that we discussed prior to the election. When someone was allowed to fax in over 800 absentee ballot requests, which is a violation of the Florida statute. And the city I had a conversation with Atlanta, myself and Ken Mulvaney and Brian Mulvaney. We went and said, we're not trying to stop. Let's look at these. They have errors in them. Let's rectify this situation before you send them out. And it is a violation of the 2011 Florida statutes. We have a copy of that.
Also
included. So if we saw the problem a month before the election and it's decided to go forward and use an opinion that was over 10 years old, it was 2002, and it was an opinion to justify. So why is there such a haste to get those absentee ballots out? And so that's our question itself.
And our main purpose, again, is to make sure that these actions never occur in the future. We're not asking for a new election. We're not asking for the results to be changed. We simply want the truth to come out, for the public in Orlando to know what is happening in our local elections, and to make the changes necessary so the integrity of the vote is protected moving forward.
What are you alleging that was actually done that was illegal or violation of election laws?
It's
It's
really
included in the press kit.
I mean,
the 8-page complaint goes in depth with violations of numerous Florida statutes. They're in fact listed on the front of the complaint.
And I have copies of those in the press kit.
I have a question.
Okay, Trina, and then this gentleman.
I'm understanding that your investigation was just for Districts 5 and District 6?
Well, before we could even conclude the District 5 and District 6 investigation, the City of Orlando seized all ballots from the Supervisor of Elections office. Since then, the cost of public records requests, the cost of staff time has exceeded what we are able to further push. That is why now is the time for the state attorney and for FDLE to launch a full investigation.
And those were Ms. Lynam's and Mr. Ing's districts, is that correct?
They are currently the representatives of those districts. Yes.
The question is, in view of the fact that Miami had swift action with harvesting absentee ballots and we know the results, how do you see this going vis-a-vis the Miami scandal?
Yes.
We included the grand jury investigation from Miami in our presentation, because we watched it when that happened.
And
it
we would like to remind everyone that the Miami grand jury investigated hundreds of ballots, and here we're talking nearly 10 times as many questionable cases. That was a 49-page grand jury report. It is included in these materials. They flagged many reasons why they were even calling on the state legislature to make numerous changes to our absentee ballot laws because of what we saw in Miami. Here we know ballot harvesting in Orlando is a bigger problem, and it must come to an end.
Have you guys, you have been investigating for a long time now, and you've looked at a lot of ballots here, more than 1,000, I think you said. Have you talked to any voters whose names are on those ballots who say, I didn't vote for that person?
We didn't ask them, did they vote? Who did they vote for?
And that's the other thing.
Isn't that
But the other
core of what you're alleging, though?
The other thing is, once the ballots were separated from their envelopes, there's no knowing who voted for who. And we have not conducted a canvass of every registered voter that turned out to vote to tabulate our own results. The question here is that the ballots were tainted and handled by city employees and out of the process of the Supervisor of Elections. We also list, as I said, numerous Florida statutes that were violated, we believe, and only a full investigation will bring those answers to light. We simply have been stonewalled to the point where we can't draw those conclusions ourselves.
As far as asking individuals who they voted for, that was not the question we posed back in 2004. It's not the question we asked. We asked, did someone come by and pick up your ballots? Did they tell you who to vote for? We looked at the harvesting, the violation of the law. We did not ask them who they voted for.
I will say, however, on the few select precincts before the ballots were seized that I did review of the actual ballots, which again were not tied to any specific voters, but only precincts, there were very suspicious markings on numerous ballots in who they voted for. Incomplete bubbles being filled out, where if you looked at every other candidate from Phil Diamond, Ken Mulvaney, myself, or Lawana Gelzer, you did not see these same patterns. So our problem is that the patterns have reached a point that are so serious that the state attorney and the FDLE must investigate.
And they have the wherewithal. They have the experts. They can look at, as far as looking at someone's handwriting and signatures to see if it's the same signature. We cannot do that. We do not have that.
We also do know that from absentee ballot envelope to absentee ballot envelope, you will see the same handwriting used in different areas of each ballot. We're talking different districts, different precincts, different zip codes, all with the same handwriting, all completing dates. We also have numerous ballots that were not stamped, being delivered at the same exact moment, which proves our allegation that ballot harvesting was taking place.
Mike, just a quick thing, and I think it bears on what Trini asked in terms of timing. You did mention that after a year, right, the ballots could be dumped, right? So how do you urge now the state attorney in particular and FDL to move on this before there's any dumping?
Well, hopefully that they can just issue an injunction to prevent the destruction of these absentee ballot requests.
It's just the request. It's not the ballots themselves and the envelopes. It's the request that can be destroyed.
The ballots and the envelopes are supposedly supposed to be preserved in the city vault for years to come. However, we do know that the ballot harvesting is tied to the request forms as well, so we will seek an injunction from the state attorney to prevent the destruction of any election materials.
All right.
Okay? Thank you all. Again, if you are a member of the press, we have some press kits and additional information that we will provide you. Thank you.